One question I get asked a lot is, why do you do what you do, Steve? Well, here's why I do it. In a little something I like to call ghost stories. Hey everybody, I'm Steve Christian, the host and producer of Local Haunts and Medium in the Raw, and one half of the Paranormal Power Couple. My other half, Pamela Theresa, Medium in the Raw, also works with me on Medium in the Raw and on Local Haunts. She is a true freak of nature medium and makes it so easy to do paranormal investigation. One thing people ask me a lot is, Steve, why do you do what you do? What got you into this? Well, the answer is simple. I grew up in a very haunted house in Charleston, South Carolina. I experienced a lot of paranormal activity my whole life. So much, in fact, I wrote a book about it. There's a link to that in the description below, where you can purchase that book on Amazon. My paranormal experiences began for me at the age of 11. My mom and I went to go look at a house in Charleston that we were going to be possibly renting. It was going to be a 3-year lease, as the owners of the house was an older couple and they were being transferred somewhere for 3 years and they needed somebody to rent their house while they were gone. And so my mom and I went to go look at the house, and it would be my stepfather and my older sister living in this house with us. And from the moment I walked into the house, which it was an ordinary brick home, middle class family home in suburbs of Charleston, South Carolina. Nothing eerie about the house from the outside. To my knowledge, there was never an axe murder or anything that ever happened in the house, which is a big misconception, that people think something terrible has to happen in a location for it to be haunted. Well, if you watch Local Haunts, you've seen time and time again that we prove that is not the case. But anyway, we walked into this house. The lady escorted my mom and I into the house, and almost immediately I was aware of a sensation I have never had before in my life up to that point, and that was the uncanny feeling that I was being watched. It was just my mom, me, and the owner of the home that was showing us the house that was present in the home. We were standing in the living room of this house, and my attention kept being drawn towards the doorway which led to the bedrooms. It was a hallway, and the bedrooms were down a hallway. Typical, 3-bedroom, 2-bath kind of floor plan of a house, where all the bedrooms are one side of the house, and you have the living room and the dining room and the kitchen on the other side. But I kept being drawn to that doorway as if I just knew somebody was staring at me. And I was like 11 years old, and this is in the 70s. I'm dating myself a little bit here. And I had no experience with hauntings or ghosts, because it was something back then people just didn't talk about. Back in the 70s, if you talked about having paranormal experiences, people looked at you like you had 3 heads. So it was kind of on the hush-hush when people had paranormal experiences, so they didn't talk about it. And I was soon to be one of those people. But I kept feeling as though I was being stared at the whole time we were there. And at one point, my mom even asked me, what's up? Because it was very obvious by my body language that I was very uncomfortable, that I just felt uneasy, that I've never had this feeling before that. And my mom asked me, what's up? I said, I feel like somebody's looking at me. and I don't recall the homeowner, like really making any kind of gesture like she knew what I was talking about or anything. But we looked through the house. We liked the house. It was actually going to be the nicest place to that date we'd ever lived in as I grew up. So it was going to be a move up for us, because we were living in an apartment at the time, and it was going to be so nice to have a house with a yard and I could play in. Because back then, when you're 11 years old, you had one toy that was outside. You didn't have video games per se and stuff like that, so you played outside a lot. So I was looking forward to having a yard to play in. So we looked through the house, and the whole time that feeling of being looked at and stared at never left me. It was just like a spine tingling. The hairs on the back of my neck would stand up. I really, really was unnerved by it, but I wasn't scared per se. It was just a feeling I wasn't used to. And it was sudden. It was just literally, I walked in the house, boom, there was this feeling. Never had that experience before. Had it many times since, but that's when it started. That day in Charleston, South Carolina, at the age of 11. We moved into the house, And wouldn't you know it, the place turned out to be incredibly haunted. So much stuff happened in that house that I detail in my book. Again, the link's in the description below if you want to purchase that book and find out all the details. I'm not going to give you all the details here because it's a lot. So much so that it's terrified me. I was so scared of what happened in that house over the 3 years we lived there that it forever got me interested into the paranormal. Even though at first when it started happening, I didn't know it was ghosts. It never occurred to me at first what I was seeing and experiencing were people who were no longer alive. I saw transparent people in the house, and a lot. And they were just like walking around the house like they belonged there, like they lived there. And I would tell my mom about it, and it got to a point where I don't think she believed me. She kind of well, what do you do when your kid tells you that they see transparent people walking around the house? You probably think they're a little bit batty. Well, she kind of probably thought I was imagining it because of the childhood I had with stepfather and a pretty crappy childhood actually. But she probably thought that I was trying to compensate with making up imaginary friends, and although they weren't friends, and so she didn't really believe me. And so I got to a point living in that house when I would run to them almost screaming when something would happen, and my stepfather and my mom would look at me like I had 3 heads. So it got to a point where I just kept it to myself, and I didn't share it, and I bottled it up and kept it all to myself, and I just had to endure it. And it seemed like all the activity in the house was focused on me. Now, is that because I'm special? No, I think it's because I'm sensitive, and I'm obviously more in tuned to the spirit world, and they can sense that. And therefore they knew I was feeling them, seeing them, hearing them. And so they kind of focused their attentions on me. So that may be something that you can relate to. Can you relate to this? If so, by all means, share your story in the comments below. Do you have paranormal activity? Have you ever experienced paranormal activity? Was it more intense when you were a child than it is when you're an adult? That's very common. Kids seem to be more wide open to experiencing paranormal. I know that was the case for me. So I actually prayed really hard to make it stop. I was terrified of what I was seeing. It shook me to the core. And I'll give some stories in other videos of some more particular instances that happened that really, really affected me in that house, to where I shut down my spiritual gifts, so to speak, to where I wasn't seeing anymore. And the irony of all this is, now I'm a paranormal investigator. I actually go looking for what I used to see as a kid, what used to scare me, what used to terrify me. I look for answers. I understand now that they're just people that are lost in the earthbound plane. They haven't transitioned for whatever reason. They're still in the earth plane, therefore they are what people call ghosts, but Pamela and I call them earthbound spirits. And I know that it's my duty to help them now. That's probably what they were looking for all those years ago when I was a kid. They knew I could see and hear them and feel them, that they wanted my help. And it's something that's kind of haunted me, you might say, throughout my career as a paranormal investigator, which has been going on 10 years now. That I've gotten so many EVPs, which is electronic voice phenomenon, of spirits and these investigations that I've been doing where they would ask for help. And when I first started doing this, I had no idea how to help them. I didn't know I could help them. Enter Pamela Theresa, 2 years into the show, Local Haunts, and who has real-time vision. She sees them, she hears them, just like we see and hear everybody else. That's how the veil is so thin for Pamela, that she's literally in both worlds, both the physical world and the spirit world. Mind-boggling, I know. But we don't have to look for ghosts because she's like, they're right there. They're sitting in this chair. They're standing over here. He's wearing a blue shirt. He's got gray hair. She could see them real time. So now that I have that tool and we know how to help them, because she's transitioned countless spirits, because being the freak of nature medium that she is, her whole life as well has been that of bombarded with earthbound spirits, because they're drawn to her and myself because we're sensitive. They know that we see them and hear them and feel them, just like you may be. Some people have more occurrences with your paranormal because of that, because they're more sensitive to it. Your awareness may be higher, or the fact that even if you don't want it, the veil is just somehow thinner for you between the physical and the spiritual. And therefore, you are able to see, hear, and feel the spirit world like other people don't necessarily, because the veil is thicker for them. So that's basically in a nutshell how it all started for me. Now, is that the end? Not by a long shot. There is so much more to tell you guys, and I'm going to share more ghost stories with you. Comment below, tell me your ghost stories, let me know what's happened to you. And again, the link to my book is in the description below. Subscribe to this channel by all means, and ring the bell so you'll be notified when we upload more videos, because we have episodes and we have more shows in production. This is the new home of Local Haunts. The shows have been on TV for 9 years, but now we've moved them to YouTube exclusively. So we have a national audience now instead of a local Jacksonville audience. Thanks for watching, and of course I'll be uploading more videos of ghost stories to share with you guys, because I have a lot to tell. All right guys, stay spooky.